So you've decided to protect your MUSA BASJOO Japanese fibre banana. In this video, I'm going to go through a few different techniques of how to do this and show you how it can be successful. So the first method I'm going to talk to you about is a classic method that's been used for years and years by thousands of people all around the world, and this is using the straw method. And this is a method I've used for years and years and years, and it's always worked really well, apart from one winter when we had that extremely cold winter. But saying that, with more straw it would have worked, I'm sure, even through that winter. So the basic premise of this is we get our MUSA bananas, we cut off the leaves, so we're just left with the trunks, and then we're going to protect it with straw, put a plastic cover over the top to stop the rain coming in, and then that will protect it from the worst of the winter weather. So I did a video of this about 10 years ago now, and we're going to use a bit of that footage just over here, and you can see how I basically cut off all the leaves of the MUSA BASJOO, and you do this sort of before it gets really cold. So after the first few light frost in autumn, this is when you start doing it, because you want to keep those leaves for as long as possible, really. So if it's a mild autumn into winter, they can still look good all the way through October and November in many places. Obviously, if you live in a colder area, you might start this process earlier once you've had that touch of frost. So you cut off all the leaves, as you can see here. And then what we do is we construct a cage around the pseudostems, the banana stems. So I like to use chicken wire to be the cage, basically, going around it. But you can use other fabrics and materials as well. And you get some bamboo canes, and you put the bamboo canes in a circular way around your clump of MUSA BASJOO, and depending how many pseudostems you're protecting, you might have a small cage or you might have a large cage. So you just put them around the edge, and you need to leave a gap between the pseudostem and where you put the cane, so you've got space for the straw to go in. And you put this all the way around. And once you've done this, basically you just get your straw, and it's important to use straw, not hay. Hay decomposes a lot quicker, and you'll get grass seeds off hay, which will mean you've got lots of weeding to do the following spring when all that grass seed germinates. So again, make sure you've got straw. Barley straw is the best, but if you can use wheat straw, if that's the only thing you can use, that's fine. But make sure that you get a lot of it, because you do need a lot. It's good to get it from farmers and sort of farm supply shops, because it's much cheaper to buy a big bale than going to a pet shop and getting lots and lots of small bales of straw that way. And basically get the straw and you pack it around all the stems. So you place it all the way around, as you can see in this clip here, and you keep going and going and going until you've covered all the area around the stems and also on top of the stems as well. And once you've done that, basically you've nearly finished, because all you need to do then is cover over the top with either a plastic sheet, some tarpaulin, or a gravel bag or something like that, just to keep the worst of the winter weather from getting in and really wetting that straw. You want to keep the straw pretty dry if possible. So that's a technique that I've used for years. That's a technique many stately homes now use if they're growing MUSA BASJOOs, and botanical gardens use as well in the northern hemisphere. So it's really good. It means you're protecting your MUSA BASJOO stems from freezing. So the outside will freeze when it gets to sub-zero, the air temperature, but it won't penetrate right to the center of the straw bales, of the straw around your MUSA BASJOO. This technique does have some downsides. It is messy, because you've got all this straw might be blowing about when you're doing it, and when you take it off in spring, you've got all this straw that you need to do something with, and it will have decomposed somewhat over winter as well. So you could use a bit of it as compost, but basically you've got a lot of material to get rid of. So that is a downside of this technique. But the plus side is it's very quick and easy to do, and it's very cheap to do, and it's using a material that will eventually break down, so you're not using extra materials if you're thinking about it from a green perspective as well. So this is a method I've used and it's always worked, but there are other methods. So another technique you can use, and people have used this successfully, is using man-made fibres to go around your MUSA BASJOO, because all these techniques are basically insulating the plants from the worst of the cold and the snow and the ice. So you can use some rock wool, so like insulation that you'd put in like a loft space, something like that, or wall spaces. You can buy this from a DIY shop. So in the UK, places like Wicks and B&Q sell it pretty cheaply, although there is some cost to it. It's more expensive than straw. And all you can do, if you wear, obviously wear gloves, ideally wear a mask as well, and you wrap this around the individual stems, and then you can use some big cable ties to make sure that it's held in place, and then again put a plastic cover over the top, and you can do this around the stems, and then this is another way to insulate your bananas. Now another way, a very clean and easy way to protect your bananas is to actually use fleece. But you don't just put one little fleece bag over the stems, or you don't just put one wrapping of fleece around each stem. You need to go round and round and round until you've got a nice thick layer, several centimeters depth of fleece going around each stem. So you can do this quite cleanly, because obviously there's no mess like with straw, but you're going to spend quite a bit of money to buy lots of fleece to do this. You need to go around several times. Obviously, if you live in a colder area, you need to go around more and more and more. If you live in a milder area, you might only have to go around once or twice just to give it that bit of protection. But ideally, go around as many times as you can within reason. And then you just get, again, a bag over the top, plastic. You can use a big bin liner or tarpaulin, something like that, to keep it nice and dry. That's another way of doing it. A nice little tip, if you want to put a cover over it without having a big tarpaulin, what you can do is, if you've just got one or two stems to deal with, you can just put your fleece around it several times. And then if you get a washing line like whirligig cover, so the big sort of tall washing lines that open up in like a square shape, you can get the covers that go over the top, which are about, just a bit wider than your MUSA BASJOO stems, and probably about 1.5 meters, 2 meters tall, so you can quickly put that over, and it looks quite neat in the garden as well, and it's waterproof, so that keeps off the winter rain. So there's a few different techniques to actually protect your MUSA BASJOO. Like I said, I use the straw technique because you can cover much bigger areas. If you've got lots of MUSA BASJOOs, and they're growing close together, you can just get the straw, put it around, spend sort of, £5, £6, £7 on a couple of bales of straw, and you can cover a large area, and then it makes sure it's nice and insulated for winter. But if you've only got a few plants, or you don't have access to straw, then using fleece, rock wool, or any other sort of foam or something like that will protect them as well. Breathable fabrics are better, but if you can't have a breathable fabric, if you don't have access to one, then they will get away with sort of less breathable fabrics, but I would avoid using bubble wrap as insulation, because it will sweat too much and it won't let any water in or out, so the bananas will maybe, or could do, rot if it's a bit mild between the cold spells over winter. Whichever type of insulation you use, you want to keep it on as least time as possible. So wherever you're living, make sure that you do this sort of a bit later on, and then soon as you know your forecasters say you're not going to get below -3, -4 degrees centigrade, take off all the insulation. In my location, that's normally at some point in March, or it might be into April, and then the bananas will grow away for the next season.